My name is Melissa, and I've been married to Cedric for nearly a decade. We're both in our 40s and don't have children. We live together in a cozy home, with Cedric working a standard white-collar job while I manage a part-time position. Thanks to our combined incomes, we enjoy a comfortable financial cushion. Our marriage has been smooth sailing so far, with hardly any major disagreements. Lately, however, things have become a bit more complicated. The change began when I inherited a condo from my father, who recently passed away. I've been advised to move into this new condo and relinquish my childhood home. My father had purchased the two-bedroom condo for himself when we got married. It's not overly large, but it's charming and stylish. The condo Cedric and I currently call home is actually my childhood residence. My parents and I lived in a four-bedroom condo till I married, at which point my father gifted it to me. After leaving for college, returning to this home filled with memories was a source of great joy. My mother passed away while I was in college, so my father lived alone in the family home. When Cedric and I were preparing to marry, my father expressed his hope that we would be comfortable in the condo. I initially thought he was hinting at moving in with us, but he firmly declined. He likely didn't want to intrude on our new life together. After my father passed away, I inherited the two-bedroom condo where he had been living. Luckily, I was able to quickly find a tenant and secure a lease. I assumed our lives would continue as they had before. However, a year later, my mother-in-law made an unexpected proposal during a visit. She suggested, "Why don't we let Jasmine and her kids move into the four-bedroom condo? It's getting cramped in their current place." Jasmine, Cedric's sister, is a single mother with 3 young children. They're currently living in a two-bedroom apartment, which I could imagine is becoming quite tight for their growing family. However, my feelings towards Jasmine had never been warm. Each time we crossed paths, she seemed to look down on me for not having children. Cedric and I married just before I turned 30, and even then, Jasmine seemed intent on one-upping me. Her attitude only worsened as I reached that milestone. She would say things like, "You're 30 and still childless. Isn't your life over?" The comments didn't stop there. After my father's passing, she made a particularly cutting remark. "It's such a shame you didn't give your father the chance to meet his grandchild." Despite Jasmine being 3 years older, she often felt more like a younger sister-in-law than a senior. I genuinely wanted to maintain a good relationship, given her family connection, and I tried to make an effort. But after her hurtful comments, I found myself wanting to keep as much distance from Jasmine as possible. I don't have any siblings, and my father was my only close family. Amid the mental and physical exhaustion from losing him, Jasmine's cold words struck me deeply, leaving me with a lasting negative impression. I hadn't seen Jasmine since shortly after my father's passing, so I was taken aback when my mother-in-law made her proposal. She suggested that Jasmine and her kids move into the four-bedroom condo, offering to cover the rent at just $500 a month. Her expression seemed to convey, "Isn't that a fantastic deal?" I was stunned. While our condo isn't brand new, it has been recently renovated and is well maintained. With good public transport and proximity to a mall, its rental value would surely exceed $2,000. $500? I was taken aback by the audacity of suggesting such a low rent for a four-bedroom condo. Whether they're unaware of the current market rates or not, it felt incredibly presumptuous. I didn't respond right away, which seemed to lead my mother-in-law to believe I was in agreement, and she continued with her plan. "You have a condo that you're renting out now, right? You could live there instead. Just don't renew the lease. Once you're moved out, Jasmine and her family can move in." "How long is the lease for?" she asked. Cedric, ever the agreeable one, chimed in, "Oh, that's a great idea. The condo where my father lived is modern and stylish, and it's perfect for just the two of us." It felt like the conversation was slipping away from me, so I interjected, "Aren't we supposed to be living here together?" The reality is, my in-laws are currently in a single-family home that's largely vacant, with just my father-in-law and mother-in-law residing there. Cedric and Jasmine's rooms remain unused. If Jasmine's family needed more space, wouldn't it make more sense for them to move into my in-laws' home first, rather than asking us to make a move? It turns out, though, that if Jasmine's family moved into my in-laws' home, the children would have to switch schools. They would need to buy new school uniforms and other items, which they considered a waste of money. I couldn't directly refuse my mother-in-law's suggestion about renting the condo to Jasmine, so I said, "This is the home where I was born and raised. It's not something I can just leave behind easily. We ended the conversation and left my in-laws' house without saying anything more. Given that my mother-in-law mentioned, "I'm not saying you have to decide right away," it's clear she hasn't given up on the idea. When I returned to the condo, I confronted Cedric, saying, "This is my family home, you know. How can you agree to leave it so easily?" Cedric looked taken aback, as if he hadn't realized how upset I was. "But your family home is just a condo," he remarked. His lack of an apology was deeply disappointing. Cedric, having grown up in a single-family home, seems to believe that a true family home must be a standalone house. He doesn't seem to grasp why I consider a condo to be my family home. While our different backgrounds might explain his perspective, a simple apology would have been appreciated. My frustration boiled over, and I raised my voice. "The condo is my family home. Stop making decisions about it without consulting me." Cedric seemed irritated when I referred to it as my condo. "What do you mean, your condo? We've been married for 10 years. It's our condo," he shouted back. If he hadn't dismissed my feelings about the condo being my family home or resisted renting it to my sister-in-law, I might have been more receptive to him calling it our condo. But given the situation, his words felt deeply unsettling. Despite numerous discussions, we remained at an impasse. Cedric, who rarely considered my perspective, labeled me as stingy, stubborn, and malicious. We both dug in our heels, and for months we were unable to reach any resolution. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law kept checking in, asking, "Have you given any more thought to our previous discussion?" My patience was wearing thin with both my mother-in-law and Cedric, who refused to support me. Then one day, I received an unexpected text from Jasmine, who was clearly frustrated with the lack of progress. "You don't have kids, so a 2-bedroom condo should be sufficient. Living in a 4-bedroom condo is a luxury for just the two of you. Just move out." I hadn't heard from Jasmine since my mother-in-law first brought up the condo issue, so this message came as a shock. There were no polite requests or appeals, just a direct command to vacate. Who does she think she is? Reading Jasmine's text made me feel foolish for trying to keep things civil up to this point. As I reflected on the situation, the thought of divorce kept creeping into my mind. Despite my efforts to control my emotions, I realized I was at the end of my rope. I visited the courthouse to pick up divorce papers and then made a call to a specific office. A few days later, I went to the county clerk's office to get copies of the property deeds. To my relief, I confirmed that both the condo I live in and the one I'm renting out are solely in my name. With this confirmation, I decided to give my husband one final chance. "I've told you repeatedly that I don't want to rent this condo to Jasmine. It's my family home, and I can't bear the thought of renting it to someone who has belittled me and said hurtful things. I need you to tell her not to count on this place." Cedric's expression was one of clear irritation, as it always was whenever I brought up the issue. Despite having shared everything Jasmine had said to me during our arguments, Cedric still didn't understand. He even remarked, "But Jasmine's point isn't entirely wrong either." Looking back, I should have divorced him right then and there. It would have spared me so much distress. But I lacked the courage to leave someone I had been with for 10 years or to face being alone as I approached 40. Now, things are different. If Cedric rejects my proposal this time, I'm ready to say goodbye. I've made up my mind, and this is my plea. You're so reluctant to leave your family home, but you're only tormenting Jasmine out of spite. It's your own behavior that invites disdain. And honestly, you're exaggerating. The things you've been told aren't as terrible as you're making them out to be. I can't understand why you're being so spiteful." Cedric looked at me with confusion, completely unaware of my resolve. I was at a loss for how Cedric could never support me, no matter how many times I needed it. I told him maybe we just can't understand each other anymore. "Then please fill this out," I said, handing him the divorce papers. I expected him to panic or become agitated, but Cedric merely sneered and smirked at the sight of the papers. "Seriously? Do you think threatening divorce will make me back down?" he retorted. Cedric seemed to believe I wasn't serious about the divorce. I thought to myself, this isn't a threat. I could have managed to get along with Jasmine as my sister-in-law, but now it feels impossible. The same goes for your mother and you. I can't trust you anymore, and there's no love left. It's over. Pack your things and leave now. Unaware of my resolve regarding the divorce, Cedric left. My anger surged and I expressed my frustration. Jasmine and my mom don't actually dislike you. Can't you see this is all your fault for only thinking about yourself? Cedric, feeling that our conversation was going in circles, tried to argue back. I cut him off. Enough. We've reached an impasse. You don't want to understand me, and I don't want to understand you. Divorce is the only option. If you don't sign these papers, I'll file for mediation. I spoke with a cold finality. Cedric responded with a growl, kicked the wall in frustration, and stormed out. He didn't sign the papers or take any of his belongings. He seemed intent on just leaving the situation behind. A few days later, as I had anticipated, Cedric returned. With a look of guilt on his face, he asked, "What should I do?" Did he really think that a display of remorse would make me reconsider? There's nothing more to discuss. Everything is already decided. If you agree to the divorce, sign the papers. If not, I'll file for mediation. Also, I've decided to sell this condo. Yes, I had made up my mind to sell my family home. On the day I went to court to get the divorce papers, I contacted Mr. Allen, a close friend of my father's. I had known Mr. Allen since childhood, and he had been very supportive, even attending my father's memorial service. He had given me his business card, offering his help if I ever needed it. His card listed his law firm, where he worked as a lawyer. Mr. Allen had been instrumental in helping me navigate my father's inheritance by introducing me to a judicial scrivener. When I consulted him about the current situation, he was supportive and provided valuable advice on checking the condo's ownership and preparing for potential complications in the divorce. His guidance gave me the strength to take a firm stand. After Cedric left the house, I made the decision to sell the condo. I reached out to a real estate agent and instructed them to list the property. I also informed Mr. Allen about the failed conversation with Cedric, how he had refused to sign the divorce papers, and how he had left without resolving anything. I asked Mr. Allen for assistance if the situation escalated to mediation. When Cedric learned that the condo was being sold, his eyes widened and his previously indifferent demeanor shifted to a menacing tone. What? So, after all your talk about this being your family home, now you're selling it? Clearly, it wasn't that important to you. You could have rented it to Jasmine if it meant so little. You're just being stingy. Cedric's outburst didn't bother me anymore. I gave him a cold stare, which made him visibly tense. Yet it was clear he wasn't ready to back down. Cedric challenged me, saying, "You can't just decide to sell it on your own. The title might be in your name, but when we divorce, there should be a division of property. This condo was our shared property, wasn't it?" I met his defiance with a smirk and replied, "Too bad. This condo was put in my name by my father just before I got married. Anything I owned before marriage isn't subject to property division. I've already confirmed this with my lawyer." The parting with the family home was difficult. I didn't want to let it become a source of further bad memories. After consulting with Mr. Allen and confirming that the condo wouldn't be part of the property division, I was able to move forward with the decision to sell it. When Cedric learned the truth, his attitude shifted dramatically, and he started clinging to me in a desperate and unseemly manner. Cedric said, "I was wrong. There's no need to rent the condo to Jasmine. It's your precious family home. Are you sure you want to sell it? Since you're still living here, you haven't sold it yet, right? Let's not sell it. We can start over. I'll speak to Jasmine and my mother. Let's not proceed with the divorce or the sale." At that moment, I questioned why I had been with him for 10 years. I felt a deep sense of self-disgust. Don't try to sweet-talk me now. You never supported me, no matter how many times we talked. There's no chance for us to start over. Goodbye. Pack your things and leave as soon as possible. Cedric continued to resist the divorce, leading us to mediation. Eventually, I was able to finalize the separation and part ways with him. Now, I'm free. I initially feared that being single would be daunting, but it's actually quite liberating. I've purchased a new 2-bedroom condo and am embracing my life on my own terms.